I'd like to call to order the Reidsville City Council meeting for Tuesday, February 10, 2026. First order of business will be invocation by the Reverend Andrew Brown, pastor of Main Street United Methodist Church, 221 South Main Street, Reidsville, North Carolina. And if I'm not embarrassing Pastor Brown is one of my former students, one of my favorite students.
You made fifth grade fun. I appreciate it. Thank you. Let us pray. Eternal Creator and Most High God, in the name of Jesus and by the mystery of faith, we seek you at this hour. Bless the leaders of our nation, that we may be a people at peace among ourselves and a blessing to other nations on the earth. O God, attend those who hold office in Reidsville. Inspire in them wisdom, charity, and justice, that with steadfast purpose they may faithfully serve in their office to promote the well-being of all people. We beseech you, O Lord, teach us, the people of this city, to rely on your strength, to accept our responsibility to our fellow citizens, and to make wise decisions for our society, so that we may be found faithful in our generation. All this we ask according to your will, Lord, and not ours. Amen.
Amen.
Next order of business will be the Pledge of Allegiance. We all stand. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As we move to adopt the agenda, I would remind council members that if any of you have a potential conflict of interest regarding any of the items on tonight's agenda, you should ask to be recused when the item is first introduced. While you may remain on the dais, you should not take part in any discussion, deliberation, or vote on the identified item, as recusal will be reflected in the meeting record. We've all had an opportunity to look at the agenda. Do we have a motion to accept?
Motion to accept as is.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. It's unanimous. Next item on the agenda is Proclamations and Recognition. Tonight we have a recognition for February as Black History Month. Whereas February has been designated as Black History Month and will be observed in our community with a series of special presentations and exhibits, with the observance affording the special opportunity for local residents to become more knowledgeable about Black heritage and to honor the many Black leaders who have contributed to the process of our nation, or progress of our nation. Whereas such knowledge can only serve to strengthen the insight of all of our citizens regarding the issues of human rights, the great strides that have been made in the crusade to eliminate the barriers to equality and minority groups, and to continue struggle and continuing to struggle against racial discrimination and poverty. Now, therefore, I, Donald L. Gore, Mayor of the City of Reidsville, on behalf of the Reidsville City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of February to be Black History Month in Reidsville, and further urge all citizens to join together in making this a period of rededication to the principles of justice and equality for all people. This is the 10th day of February, 2026. The next order of business is a recognition of Corporal Walter Joyce, a 30-year retiree of the Reidsville Police Department. I thought it only fitting that another policeman take care of your proclamation on tonight. And it's even more fitting that he too was a SRO, and he was a SRO for my fifth graders at Williamsburg, and they loved him. Just like the students at South End loved OJ. So Willie, if you do that.
Walter Joyce. Oh, my. Now what I'm going to do, I'm not supposed to do this, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to reveal your performance because now, I did your performance appraisal at least for about 10 years. Now, when I reveal this, don't sue me because I'm going to pinch you. Here we go. Year one, that above standard. Year two, above standard. We don't have time back, so I'm going all the way to the year 10, above standards, above standards. And I want to say that I did not give above standards away just like candy. You earned it. I would go and I would talk to the principal. The principal said, excellent job. I talked with the teachers, excellent job. I talked with the parents, excellent job. I talked with the students, excellent job. You cared about the school and your job. You loved those students. You cared about their education. You cared about their safety. The same thing about the police department. You cared about your job. There were people all around in the community. When you weren't in school and you were out doing the summer patrol, the citizens would say, that's a mighty fine officer. Now, I just want to thank you for all the years that, I was able to work with you, and you made me feel so proud to be your supervisor. I was lucky to have you. Well, thank you. I want to read this tonight to you, and read it from my heart, because this is really, you so deserving of it. Whereas Corporal Walter Joyce began his career in law enforcement with the Reidsville Police Department as a police officer on December the 30th, 1996, following in the footsteps of his grandfather, retired Reidsville Police Department Lieutenant Henry Joyce. He was my lieutenant as well. Before officially retiring on January the 1st, 2026, with 30 years in the state retirement system. And whereas Corporal Joyce was promoted to Police Officer 2 in May 2002, Police Officer 3 in August 2005, and Master Police Officer / Corporal in April 2018, eventually becoming Sergeant in August 2018, before voluntarily returning to Master Patrol Officer status in December of 2022, to go back to the school resource officer position that he loved. And whereas during his 3 decades on the police force, he demonstrated daily the police department motto, making a difference. Not only in his work out in the field, but especially in his work as SRO, where he excelled, making a difference in those young students' lives who affectionately called him OJ for Officer Joyce. And whereas without sacrificing the quality or quantity of his daily workload, Corporal Joyce also freely offered his time to assist with numerous events, and his passion for his job earned him the respect of the Reidsville citizens, school personnel and staff, students and parents. And whereas Corporal Joyce was able to end his career on a special high note, having the opportunity to work alongside his son, Holden, who became an officer with the Regional Police Department in 2024. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Donald L. Moore, on behalf of the Reidsville City Council, take pleasure in recognizing and honoring Corporal Walter F. Joyce on the occasion of his retirement from the Regional Police Department, and thank him for his dedication and devotion to the city and its citizens as he continuously strove to make Reidsville a better place to work, live, play, and live. This 10th day, February 2026, is signed by our most honorable Mayor, Donald L. Gorham. Please, everybody, give this man a round of applause. And I hope everybody caught the caption in there that he's retiring, but he's coming right back to serve again in that capacity in the schools to help us out. Remember, started back yesterday. Oh my goodness, what dedication. I hate to worry you all, but please give it one more round.
Walter, the Seahawks won the Super Bowl on Sunday.
Yes, sir.
But you got the Super Bowl today.
Thank you. There's a bigger Cowboy fan here than me, believe it or not.
It is?
Sitting right over there.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good luck. You're going to be sorely missed.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Walter's the only Cowboy fan I can have a sensible conversation with about football.
I just want to say a couple things real quick.
Go ahead. Floor is yours.
It was my honor and pleasure, and all the credit and thanks to God. Thank you to my wife for supporting me through the whole journey. All my whole family, my law enforcement family, my school family, my church family. It goes on and on. There's just so many things. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shucks, we might as well go on home. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda. We have 4 items. Anyone who'd like to have one of those 4 items pulled? If not, do we have a motion?
Motion. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. It's unanimous. Next item is a public hearing. Consideration of a text amendment to allow short-term rentals by right in all residential zoning districts and the Central Business CB District. T 2025-05, enclosure 1, Ms. Drew Bigelow, Planning and Community Development Director. You're going to be up there for a while tonight.
Yeah, quite a while tonight. Thank you, Mayor, Council, and Interim Manager Phillips. Staff is petitioning to amend Article 5, Section 2, the Table of Permitted Uses and the notes to the Table of Permitted Uses of the Reidsville zoning ordinance to introduce a new permitted use for short-term rentals. This new permitted use will be allowed by right in all residential zoning districts, as well as the central business district that comprises the downtown commercial core. This amendment will also establish Note 45 for short-term rentals, and Note 45 will provide the following development requirements for short-term rentals. So I have a list that I'll go through. There's approximately 7 or 8 of them. The first being that cooking facilities will not be permitted in any bedroom. For the purpose of this ordinance, cooking facilities include any refrigerator in excess of 7 cubic feet, any stovetop or range that operates on a 220-volt electric service, any appliance that operates on natural gas, or any cooktop, whether integrated into a countertop or a separate appliance, which contains more than 2 cooking surfaces or burners. This shall not prohibit cooking facilities within a 1-bedroom studio rental unit. Number 2, in residential zoning districts, short-term renters shall not utilize the premise for holding special events or gatherings. Number 3, for any multi-unit dwelling, no more than 50% or 8 dwelling units total, whichever is greater, may be used for short-term rentals in a single building. Number 4, every short-term rental operator shall maintain for a period of 3 years a list of all short-term rental lodgers staying on premise. Number 5, the zoning permit number authorizing the short-term rental shall be conspicuously posted and on all advertisements for the short-term rental and the subject property. Number 6, on-site exterior advertising for the short-term rental is prohibited. And then number 7, short-term rental operators shall comply with all applicable state and local laws, including those relating to fire and building codes, smoke detecting and carbon monoxide detecting equipment, housing codes, and payment of taxes to the appropriate governmental entities, including an occupancy tax. Are there any questions before I move on regarding those 7 different requirements?
How did we come up with these requirements? I mean, what was the basis of it? Is there particular issues that we're experiencing in the community that would require us to come up with these 7 requirements?
Sure. So staff looked at the requirements from a lot of other places. Particularly, these requirements are referenced from Raleigh. Raleigh is very different from we are. However, their policy was very well written, very well laid out, requiring, for example, number 1 about the cooking facilities prevents it from turning into like a boarding house situation where you have full living, dwelling, and cooking facilities in a single room. It keeps it more in line with the residential accommodations that are typical in the districts where we're allowing these to go. It was discussed a couple of times with other staff and council, specifically number 7, that we include that language that it must comply with all other applicable laws, including building code, state laws, housing codes, so on and so forth. But we did reference also Greensboro, we looked at Burlington, we looked at Wilmington because they have very explicit short-term rental laws. It's kind of recent that the state has given us authority to kind of dictate short-term rentals. We can't keep necessarily a registration for short-term rentals, but they have given us some authority to dictate what constitutes a short-term rental. So we looked at all of the places that have implemented that authority thus far that we felt had solid, well-written ordinances. So that's where we came up with this.
Based off of what you're saying with Raleigh and Wilmington and all these cities, the way that I see this and what the state has given us, these policies are implemented in areas that are trying to control growth, high population areas where these are an issue. We have a lot of apartments. I made this statement when we had this discussion where we do have short-term rentals, and based off of the classification here, these short-term rentals that we have for what you would consider executive suites and things for the manufacturing factories that are around here, this policy puts those property owners or one specific individual property owner out of compliance. in certain buildings, which would require him to then move people around. And we had this discussion of how many Airbnbs are we aware of, how many short-term rentals are we aware of here, and is this an issue that was brought to light by the community that would now require our regulatory ordinances, based off of that. And I think the assumption of that is it's not a problem, and the reason why I say that is we have a problem with getting investments and getting people to build here and do the certain things, and we're not Raleigh, we're not Wilmington, we're not Greensboro. We don't have that population. And just the mere fact that we've created an obstacle or a red tape creates another barrier and signifies another signal to investors and developers and business people that want to develop here to not come here. You create policies and regulations when you have a problem. I think we want to promote this, to get the people in, and then if we became Greensboro, Raleigh, or Burlington, we're a population of 14,300 people, some dispute more or less, whatever. But I just have a fundamental problem with this because it's just another obstacle that the community sees and outsiders see on fact, and based off the fact that we already have businesses that are currently operating apartment complexes that are renting to the factories and the manufacturing facilities that already came here that would put them out of compliance, and it's not an issue. It's a moot point,
Staff would argue that they're currently out of compliance because short-term rentals are not permitted presently. So any short-term rentals that are currently operating throughout the city would not be in compliance currently. This provides them with a path forward to come into compliance by including it as a new use, a permissible use in these districts.
But you've limited the amount of structures that can be rented, and you take an apartment facility, it's not uncommon in to have those short-term rentals. So we just don't have an issue, period. And I don't understand why we make up a policy to deal with an issue that we don't have. If we have a policy that states that they're not in compliance, I think we'd be looking at the issue of doing away with the policy until it becomes a problem, because these policies and ordinance revolve and evolve as we evolve, and until it becomes a problem, why do we make it a problem?
Well, at present, there is no policy to do away with. Again, they're not in compliance. The policy doesn't exist, and this is not a permitted use. So this is an attempt to bring them into compliance, to allow short-term rentals, be it on an apartment complex level or a single family, unit by unit basis.
Do we have a policy right now that says they can't have short-term rental at apartment complexes?
It is not included in our table of permissible uses. And if it's not included in the table of permissible uses, then it is not a permissible use.
So you're saying because it's not written saying that it's there, then they should automatically know that it's not feasible?
I'm not saying they shouldn't automatically know. That's part of their due diligence process to check with us before they do that, but it is not a permitted use per our standards and per the table of permitted uses. It is not permitted.
We would have to agree to disagree, because I think that you would list what's permitted and what's not permitted, and not have the assumption that just because it's not written in there, that's where we get into that objective and subjectiveness of our policies, But anyways, okay.
Certainly.
Thanks.
I understand your concern, and the similar concern's been expressed about whether uses are listed explicitly or not, and to just be frank, it's impossible to list every use that would be excluded or permitted. That's why some of the uses are a little bit vague, and that's why we don't have an explicit list of uses that are not permitted. We have always operated under the premise that if it's included in the table of permitted uses, hence the name, table of permitted uses, it is allowable. If it is not included in that table, then it is deemed unallowable.
And if it's not included, wouldn't, regardless of the circumstance, whether it's this or another issue, when it's not in there, that's when I think that if there was a question, that's when you would allow it, or either A, there would be a process where it be brought before council. We wouldn't just automatically say that it's not permitted because we failed to leave it out. And that's where the document would ever be evolving as the community evolves, is the way that I would see it. And I think many business people, many investors would see it as a community as a whole,
I believe you're correct, and that's the process that you have before you tonight, the text amendment process to include it in the ordinance. and it's at your discretion whether you choose to accept it as written or amend it. Particularly, you've referenced the dwelling count. That was something that we discussed with council prior to. Originally, it was suggested a maximum of 4 units or 25%, and we did raise that to 8 units or 50% per the recommendation, the feedback that we received by speaking with you and staff and the public. So there have been some amendments to the initial kind of proposal that's been made, but you can accept it as is, or you can amend it further tonight if you feel that that particular line item doesn't apply.
What was the issue with planning board when they voted 5-2, 5-4, 2 against?
It had nothing to do with any of the standards provided. It had more to do with the districts in which the short-term rentals were going to be allowed. There were concerns on 2 separate ends, one in regard to short-term rentals being allowed in residential districts because they are in essence a business. And then on the flip side, there was concerns about it being allowed in the commercial district because it is in essence a residential accommodation. So we had one that felt it was a commercial and one that felt it was more of a residential use.
So Drew, pretty much on this policy here, if we accept it, it includes your Airbnb, which we don't have anything for Airbnbs, which if we don't create a policy like that, they're operating illegal, correct?
Correct, yes. All the Airbnbs, the Verbo rentals that you find, I think there's approximately 5 or 6 that you find out there. But in addition, the ones that we're not aware of that are not explicitly listed on Airbnb, as Councilman Martin is referring to, the short-term rental of these apartment units, technically those are also out of compliance.
And we're trying also to set some standards
Correct. We're trying to include some
for
standards.
accountability.
To continue the report, this really came up because there's a lack of accommodation for travelers, people who come into town. When you look at the number of people who traveled here for Fab Festival, for example, we had thousands of people that came from other communities, even out of state, to attend Fab Festival. They had nowhere to stay. So they were not spending their dollars here over the course of the weekend. They were making a day trip of it and then leaving. We weren't able to capitalize on that because we didn't have these accommodations. Clearly, there's a need. Clearly, there are people who own property in the city who are interested in operating these sort of facilities. So this is an attempt to provide them with a legal way to be in compliance to do so. Ms. Gold?
What constitutes short-term? We keep saying short-term rentals, but is that 2 days, 7 days, 30 days?
Typically, we didn't include a time frame in there so that we could be lenient with somebody. Typically, it constitutes 30 days or less. That's what you see. But we did make the choice to not include that language. That way, we could be a little bit more discretionary in case someone was going to stay 31 days or 32 days. Really, if you get into a long-term lease where it's a month-to-month or multi-month lease, then that's not going to be short-term.
I personally would think it would be more important, like during COVID, when we had so many traveling medical personnel that needed a place to stay on a short term, but they were longer than 30 days. That's why I asked.
Yeah, and that would be just between them and the property owner, even if it were advertised on Airbnb or something of that nature, Verbo, some other rental site. If it's, month-to-month lease type situation where there's a contract involved between the tenant and the property owner, that wouldn't necessarily apply here. This is for your weekend renters, your weekly renters, the people who are coming in town for a wedding. We have a great venue here, and there's no place to stay for the people that come to take advantage of that venue. So this is more geared towards them, and we didn't want to lock somebody in to 30 days or less.
I want to say this last thing, I'm not going to beat a dead horse, but
Certainly.
there's nothing illegal about having short-term rentals or Airbnbs here now if it's not written in the ordinance. Just because we don't have it written doesn't make it an enforceable action, because then it becomes a discretionary action. So, and it doesn't make it illegal with state standards. Just because you have been given an opportunity to regulate something through state law, such as you see, every area that has enforced a situation here are areas like Raleigh, Wilmington, the larger cities where there's college, a lot of young people, parties, and different things. And that was given as a purpose to regulate those type events, to keep things from getting out of hand and out of control. And that's where we have these particular issues. that every little thing adds up and matters and counts that we do here. Every piece of red tape that we put in place for investors when they see, okay, well, my apartment units are only limited to 8 per building or all these issues, or if I got a duplex, I'm only limited to this number of people. When in fact, there are people who would come in here and invest and purchase a 4-unit duplex or quadplex and want to short-term rental that out. This doesn't promote people to want to come in here and purchase and invest, to create places to stay. When in fact, it signals that there are red tape for an area that doesn't have a problem right now, and that you're going to limit what I do with my investment is what it gives out. I sought community feedback, and I sought investors and property owners feedback in this. And again, every policy that we continue to bring up here is a reflection of Raleigh, Durham, Kernersville, Charlotte, and all these particular areas, and we just do not have that population, nor that tax base, nor those issues, and I think that if we don't get out of searching for regulations to put in, and we need to be searching for ways to deregulate, we're going to continue to send these signals to investors and business people across to stay away from here.
Certainly. We do not intend to run off any investors, be it corporate investors or, your individual person who's looking to flip a property that they currently own and turn it into an Airbnb to bring in additional income. I do think that it might be a bit of an overgeneralization to assume why these other jurisdictions have the standards that they have without reaching out to them directly. To your point, we're not a college town. We don't have the complaints that I would assume a college town with these sort of regulations would have. But we have had an instance in recent years where there was an Airbnb operating without proper permitting, because they are not allowed, and we do have the authority to say that they're not allowed since they're not included in our ordinance explicitly. That they hosted a party and it became a problem. It was a nuisance to the neighbors. I believe law enforcement had to get involved. So these standards help to regulate that kind of activity. Just because we're not a big college town doesn't mean we don't face similar challenges.
That is the primary reason why we looked into this.
It was.
Because of that particular incident. That night, I received 10 calls about that one place.
How long ago was that?
It's,
About a year and a half.
yeah, it hadn't been long.
Since that one complaint prior to that and now, we haven't had any other problem.
That's just an example of what could happen if we don't have regulations in place to take care of situations like this.
Not to say there haven't been problems. We might not be aware of any problems that have occurred. That one was brought to our attention because of its proximity to downtown, the size of the issue. It was a very large party.
So there's not an issue with having regulations that control those problems, but by limiting the number of Airbnbs available, 6, 8 per unit of apartment complex that's got 20-some, that's not going to solve that issue.
What would be 50%?
So what 50%, that's not going to solve the number. The limiting the number of which an investor can do is not going to prevent you from having an issue, because there was one particular individual that wasn't a multi-complex issue. So the point of it is you tailor policies that make statements revolving around short-term rental that tailor to that particular issue so that it gives you control. But by simply hamstringing or tying the hands of the investor or the property and limiting the number of a number of units that a property owner investor can have doesn't solve the issue, And in any way, shape, form, or fashion, if anyone here can explain to me how this will prevent that same issue from happening, please do. Anybody?
I think it simply has to do with reducing the possibility for occurrence. If you reduce the number of units that can potentially be used, you're in essence reducing the potential of an occurrence.
So do we want to reduce the number of units that can be used, or do we want to promote this because there's a need for Airbnbs? We've said the opposite. We've said, hey, we need them. And now we say if we do this, we can reduce the number of units that are there that will promote the occurrence,
It's the opinion of staff that you have to have a middle ground. You've got to have a middle ground. You've got to make it accessible and possible and permissible, but you've got to have regulations in place to prevent it from getting out of hand.
Gotcha.
These things will happen and continue to happen. Just the other day, 2 days ago, on Reed School Road, a police officer was sitting out there in plain daylight. And that police officer wrote 5 tickets within a 2.5 hour period. I had to go to the store to get something for the wife. And when I was coming back from Lowe's, cars were still speeding up Reed School Road. I knew right away that the police officer had left. When I got down there, the car was gone. So there are going to be people who are going to do things that they shouldn't do.
100%.
So we must, even though that speed limit sign says 35, there are still people who are speeding. So we have to have some kind of regulations in place to handle misbehavior with these kinds of situations that we have.
I applaud the fact that you're doing this in advance. And the best thing to do, we always prepare and put regulations in place for growth. And to me, this signals that we'll have everything in place when the growth does come.
Yes.
We in no way wish to penalize somebody, and if it's unfortunately perceived that way, it's not an attempt to penalize a developer or a property owner from utilizing their property for an additional source of income. It's just to ensure that we're able to track these things in a legal way without having a registry, and that we have standards in the event that something does get out of hand, that we can come back and bring it into compliance.
Exactly.
The fewer standards, the more lax the standards, the less authority we have to be able to correct an issue when it does arise.
We're protecting the residents as we do this.
That's where we as business people would have to fundamentally disagree on, when the growth comes and what's going to make the growth come, So anyways, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you kindly.
All right, the hearing will start at 6:37. Do we have anyone who'd like to speak for this amendment? Seeing none, is there anyone who'd like to speak against? We'll close the hearing then at 6:38. All right, you all have had an opportunity to hear the recommendation.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to recommend a proposed text amendment as presented, T 2025-05 be approved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed? Thank you. Next item. Consideration of an ordinance to extend the corporate limits of the city of Reidsville by voluntary annexation or annexing approximately 3.441 acres. Partial number 186523, partial number 186524, and partial 186525, located off of Highway 158, A 2026-01, Enclosure 2. Ms. Bigelow.
Thank you again. Attached is a fully executed request by the owners of the property identified in Rockingham County Deed Book 1694, page 594, to voluntarily annex 3.441 acres located off of US 158. This is a non-contiguous annexation. The property meets the statutory requirements under NCGS 160A 51.1B for annexation, as the nearest point of the property is not more than 3 miles from the primary corporate limit, is no closer to any other municipality than it is to the city of Reidsville, and Reidsville remains well under its 10% acreage allotment allowance for non-contiguous annexations. The property was recently subdivided and is pending assignment of new Rockingham County parcel numbers. We did get those, as the mayor just read them, prior to the submittal of the agenda packet, but it is not included in the memo report that you have. City staff have reviewed the request, and the planning staff make the following findings. The property identified in this request is approximately 1,650 feet from the nearest city limit line, just west of the Liberty Road annexation that occurred a couple of years ago. It is approximately 2.7 miles from the nearest fire station, being Fire Station 3, and is approximately 5.3 miles from the police station located here in downtown. The city of Reidsville currently has another satellite annex property on Crutchfield Road to the north of the city that is 3.3 miles from the nearest fire station, being Fire Station 1, and approximately 4.4 miles from the police station. This annex parcel is of similar distance from the nearest city limit line, which happens to be another satellite annex property measuring approximately 1,600 feet. However, the annexation on Crutchfield Road is approximately 8,600 feet from the nearest city limit line proper for our contiguous jurisdiction. It's also worth noting that this annexation, this property, is much smaller than the one identified on Crutchfield Road. The fire department has expressed their concerns regarding their ability to provide service to the property. However, it is located within the 5-mile boundary for which we may provide services. The nearest fire hydrant is located near the right-of-way of US 158 at the southeastern corner of the property. Pertaining to fire service, beginning with the effective date of annexation, the city shall pay annually a proportional share of any payments due on any debt, including principal and interest relating to the facilities or equipment of the rural fire department. In the past, the payments for such debts were $0 or otherwise minimal, being less than $100 typically. The Monroe Fire Department will be responsible for providing staff with the financial information required to calculate this payment. We had the annexation from Gibbs Lake Road last year, where we had the same thing. We worked with Monroe Fire Department to determine what our cost would be, and it was less than $100. And for that purpose, we didn't have to provide that payment of debt service. The Rural Fire Department shall certify to the city each year the amount that will be extended for debt service, subject to be shared by the city. Excuse me. The City of Reidsville Police Department, at the time that we wrote this report, had not expressed any concerns regarding their ability to provide service to the property, as it was located in the 5-mile boundary for which we may provide services, and the 1-mile boundary for which we are able to currently provide services outside the city limit proper. To clarify, after writing this, the police department did reach out to staff and note similar concerns that there may be extended response times to the property. The only access to this property is going down 158 or coming up around the lake until the development of Liberty Road is completed at least. So they did express the same concerns the fire department had about extended response times potentially. Let me find my place here. The Public Works Department has indicated that they will be able to provide residential trash service to the property without issue. Sewer service is not available, and the applicant has been made aware that septic will be required. Water service is available within the right-of-way of US 158 through Rockingham County, and all applications for new service will be reviewed and approved by the county. Considering the existence of other satellite annexations previously approved by the City of Reidsville, the planning staff finds this petition to be valid, and the planning staff recommend approval of the ordinance to extend the corporate limit after the required public hearing. I'll take any questions about the annexation process, any questions you have about the parcel. We also have the applicant here tonight. He was able to attend.
So just from my own investigation into it, when I learned about it, and hearing what you've reported with the fire and police, let's start with that and the response times, there could be issues. And the fact that, potential, and the fact that there's no water coming to this, being paid to the city, there's no sewer, so there's no services there. So pretty much all you're going to have is the tax base on 3 houses. And on top of that, you'll be paying that volunteer fire department that rate or whatever it is it comes up to for taking that property out of their jurisdiction. I mean, I don't see, I'm not against the growth and stuff, but I'm not a fan of this hop, skip annexation stuff. I never have been. And to me, just 3 houses doesn't fit for me. Bigger complex or something, development, I can understand that. But when you're taking that far out, and our service is going out that far, to me, I just think that's just an issue. It's not a good move on the city. It's not a good business move, in my opinion. Especially when we're getting those services out of it. You got to provide services. The only thing you're getting is 3 houses on taxes coming in. So unless there's more to it.
I was going to say, I can provide just a little bit more. So the water service, it's the county's line, but it's our water, is my understanding. So the county does pay us for parcels that are within the city that utilize that water. So we would receive some form of payment for the water service. I don't know what that would be. I couldn't give you a number. But we would receive some sort of payment for that. They would be paying for their sanitation services. Additionally, as you noted, we would be getting the property tax. The reasoning for this annexation is primarily due to the watershed. So the watershed in the county, the standard, I believe, is 1 unit for 2 acres. So this property is relatively undevelopable in the county per the development, the type of 3-unit, single-family development that the applicant was wanting to do. The property has sat vacant for years. It was formerly owned by O.B. Chambers. There's a retention pond, dam on the backside of the property that up until recently has made it also somewhat undesirable. So I think this is an opportunity to have a parcel that would otherwise sit vacant, indefinitely, be developed into something.
But you said sewer's not available, correct? Requires
Sewer's not. Sewer is not available here unless they wanted to extend it miles down the road, or potentially with upgrades to the Monroton School pump station connect there.
Which wouldn't be financially feasible. And when you talk about the reason that this property is undeveloped is based off of it being in the watershed, that also will create problems in order for them to be able to have septic systems that will accommodate that type of structure. And then when those structures don't meet those requirements through the health department, then that's going to create another issue for us. And so I feel like that we have to make a decision based off of what's in the citizens' best interest. And I think they need to go back and do some research to make sure that the land would even perk. When you have all those watersheds, you can't put drain fields in those areas, which is probably why it has not been able to be developed. And then that individual is going to be paying a double tax base, no services, no sewer, no septic. We've got to send a trash truck out there for $40 a month, once a week. I think I 100% agree with Councilman Coates. And although if the individual wants to put that in our tax base, I think they need to be given a little bit more information and would probably want to go check and get perk tests done first, because then once that issue comes back, they're going to be looking at us, and there's some statutory obligations. I'm not 100% what they are once you annex locations to provide sewer, and I certainly wouldn't want to end up with another sewer issue like we have as a water issue out on Crutchfield Road that becomes a constant issue to us, and then they're back in here wanting to de-annex because they're not able to develop in the manner in which they thought just simply by annexing was going to allow them. I think we ought to recommend to go back, get their health department testing done, and see if it's even a possibility.
And that would certainly be a question or a discussion best reserved for the applicant. They are here tonight. I don't know what testing at the county level with the health department that they have or have not done. I know they had a formal survey done, so it's possible that they had that testing done at the time that the survey was completed. I will say that if this is not annexed and we choose to go back, the applicant does have the right to petition at a later date. So as Mr. Martin's saying, if you don't want to move forward with it tonight, you could always table it and hear it again, or the applicant, if it is denied for one reason or another, may come back and petition again.
I just don't want to take somebody's money for the sake of taking it and them not understanding that they're
Certainly.
missing some steps here, to even know if they can do what they want to do outside of the zoning. And the largest issue is what's alarming and concerning is when you talk about the percentages of this being in the watershed, retention ponds already on the property, that's going to limit that space down. So even if zoning would allow them to have this multifamily facet of buildings on there, it doesn't supersede the health department and whether the land can perk, you know.
Certainly.
And that's probably why, if these people understood, no one scooped this desirable piece of property up because it doesn't perk or not going to meet those criterias. And so therefore, just simply taking their tax dollars would be wrong of us if we don't make sure and ensure they have the right knowledge to check everything.
Certainly, and I would, again, let the applicant speak to that. I don't know what testing they have or have not done. As far as zoning is concerned, that's all I can speak on, and it does meet our standards.
Could we,
as far as zoning.
could we hear from the applicant?
Certainly.
I felt that I had read that any time we annex outside the city limits, that within 3 years, we have to offer the services of septic and water. That we had a 3-year limit on that.
Sewer and water,
Sewer and water.
Certainly, so that's why we discussed with the applicant ahead of time that would not be a possibility. We made them aware. Initially, they were seeking sewer service, and the city planner conveyed to me that she has discussed with them or reached out to them and made them aware that septic would be their only option here to develop this property.
Most people want to annex in because they want that water sewer service, and I think the key factor here would be the access to that, and then them not having a fundamental understanding that this probably could be an issue.
Yes, and that's why we've tried to have those discussions with them about the sewer. I mean, water is available, again, it's through the county. We would be paid a fee for that service. So we would get some payment out of that. But also, you know, that is a concern. I think they're aware of that. I'll let them speak to that more. But primarily, it was expressed to staff that this is a watershed, a density issue within the watershed, not being able to build to the density that makes a financially motivated decision for them, that if they can only build the one unit, it's not worth building.
Which that's going to be left, let's hear from them and see if they have the right information to go get that before we just snatch their land up from them and start collecting taxes off of them.
I'll stay here for questions if you need anything else.
Does this need to be part of the public hearing? So we need to open the public hearing up before you.
Okay, we'll open the public hearing up at 6:52. And we have someone who's speaking for.
Good evening. I'm Alex Carter. Address is P.O. Box 669, Walkertown, North Carolina, 27051. I'm here as a proponent for the property owner. I'm a licensed civil engineer, and I think I can answer most of your questions that you have. You're exactly right. You're on the right track. Most of these annexations happen because people are interested in public water and sewer. In this case, the watershed really is the big issue. The soils for the property have been reviewed by soil scientists. They're suitable for septic, so we're okay there. There's no floodplain on these properties, but they are in a watershed area, and they're in a critical area because they're close to a water intake point. So what happens is the state has regulation around that, and the county also has regulation. The county regulation is much more restrictive. They only allow 1 unit per 2 acres under their requirements. When we go through the annexation, Reidsville and the state requirements are much more conducive. One lot per 40,000.
So the land in your civil engineer will stand for that number of multifamily units in a septic system and meet the county's criteria of the backup areas and all that?
That's correct. So these would be single-family residential, R20 type zoning, single-family residential. They are limited on built-upon area. And these lots are about 1/3 acres each, so there's lots of room there to do typically what we would build in those types of situations. So these are going to be probably entry-level to mid-tier type homes that they would build on these three lots. And they would meet all the criteria for watershed, septic, and all the rest. So it has been investigated pretty thoroughly. Well, we appreciate the opportunity to get a chance to come into the Reidsville community and hope we get a positive outcome this evening. If there's any other questions, I'll be happy to take those.
Is there anyone, you got a question? Is there anyone else who'd like to speak for?
Thank you.
Seeing none, is there anyone who'd like to speak against? Okay, we'll close the public hearing at 6:55. What is the pleasure of council?
Mayor, I'd make a motion that proposed voluntary annexation request be denied.
I would second that motion, just given the limited number of criteria of where we can satellite annex. We had that conversation a couple of different times, and I don't know that it's necessarily a fit. You know, one of the things that we hear from our police and our fire is that it can be a problem, and I think if it's an issue, that liability falls back on us, and they've already stated that there is a potential issue could arise. They didn't say it would arise, but at that point in time, that puts liability back on us as a city. And all while I certainly want to increase tax base by as much as possible, I don't want to feel like that I'm taking advantage of somebody, and I certainly don't want to cause harm and have that fall on me. Just simply grasping for a dollar.
All right, we have a motion to deny and a second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed? Bill, is there any need to go with the next one?
I have a question. Are there any changes that can be made that will allow them to come back and make another request?
They have the option to go to the county and try to make requests, you know, since they're using septic already. You get an option to petition the county and have a hearing for this if you make application. I believe that I would try that. I just don't feel that it's right, you know, and I'm sorry that I feel that way. Because we have these issues where our police has to go out to Crutchfield Roads the same distance, and it puts a burden upon staff, and that's why fire and police has stated that this could be potential issues that arise. Then it causes confusion amongst the county in terms of who's responsible. It causes issues with the county and the sheriff and 911 operations. But no, I'd like to do a little more research myself and see where we stand on that. And you have an opportunity to repetition, and I would do some research for you on that and deliver that information to Ms. Drew and the rest of the council, what I come up with, to try to make sure you can do what you want to accomplish. I just don't feel right for the property owner doing it. I just have some uncertainties in it, you know, and I'm sorry.
Next item on the agenda, consideration of a conditional rezoning request for an 11.66 acre parcel located on the corner of South Scale Street and Freeway Drive from a mixed designation of residential 20, R20, and highway business HB to conditional zoning.
Mayor, just for the purpose of the minutes, could we have
We need to close it.
something in saying about why we didn't do number 3?
Okay. All right, we didn't do the third,
Closure number 3.
Number 3, because,
It was
was
a
no-
rezoning enclosure
yeah.
for,
yeah,
enclosure number 3 was rezoning
Yeah.
pertaining to the same property.
yeah, I had
The
asked Bill,
basis of that rezoning if we're not going to annex it.
I had asked Bill. Okay, Drew,
Ready for me?
yeah.
Alrighty. So as you stated, this is a conditional rezoning request. Mount Jubilee Ministries is petitioning to rezone a parcel located on the corner of South Scale Street and Freeway Drive, Rockingham County, parcel number 186630, to conditional zoning highway business from a mixed-use designation of residential 20, R20, and highway business, HB. The owner of the property is Mount Jubilee Ministries Incorporated. This parcel encompasses an approximate area of 11.66 acres. The property is currently undeveloped. However, a single-family residence previously existed on site and was removed within the last couple of years. This was a controlled burn conducted by the fire department. City water service is available in the right-of-way of Freeway Drive to the south and South Scale Street to the east. City sewer service is available within the right-of-way of South Scale Street to the east, and a city sewer main crosses the northernmost corner of the property. Both Freeway Drive and South Scale Street are NCDOT right-of-ways, and approval will need to be obtained from NCDOT for utility connection onto the city's water and sewer systems beneath the right-of-way. There are no streams on site. However, the property is located in both the Jordan Lake and Troublesome Creek watersheds. The entire parcel is located in the Jordan Lake watershed and subject to the Jordan Lake buffer rules. The majority of the property is located, approximately 95% of the property, in the Troublesome Creek watershed that recharges Reidsville Lake's drinking water. In the Troublesome Creek watershed, non-single-family residential uses, including apartments, townhomes, duplexes, and all commercial uses, are limited to a 24% built-upon area by the state's drinking watershed regulations, which the city enforces. The intent is to limit runoff and impervious development surface during stormwater events that flow into our drinking water source and ultimately reduce water quality. The proposed development for this site shall be in compliance with this standard. Additionally, the floodplain insurance rate map identified as firm indicates no floodplains on site. As you know, a conditional rezoning request amends the zoning map with site-specific conditions incorporated into the amendment. This allows the owner and developer to place voluntary conditions on the land with the intent of restricting allowable uses within the new district or to ask for deviations from our standards. The owner and applicant get to choose which of the allowable uses for the district, in this case the highway business district and the uses permitted in the highway business district, that they would like to impose upon the land. This is a limited use conditional rezoning, and the applicant has requested to prohibit several of the highway business allowable land uses for this site. Per the application, all uses permitted within the highway business zoning district shall be allowed except for the following. I'm not going to read the following. It's quite an extensive list. It's 60-some uses, but there is a table attached with the highlighted uses that will stay and the ones that will be removed. Essentially, they want to keep some retail. They want to keep office, potential for gathering spaces, and remove all of the other uses. The applicant is not requesting to deviate from the allowable dimensional standards for the highway business district. Since this is a limited use conditional rezoning and no deviation from the district dimensional standards has been requested, a concept site plan is not required. As a courtesy to council, the applicant has provided a sketch site plan for this development. Per Article 5, Section 1 of the zoning ordinance, any major change that alters the density of the development, decreases use of the compatible design features, increases pedestrian features, or changes the uses approved for the property must go before, again, the planning board and city council for approval. Minor changes which do not rise to the level of a major change can be administratively approved by staff, specifically myself, the Planning and Community Development Director. The proposed conditional rezoning aligns with goal number 2 of the Reidsville Land Development Plan to develop strong local economy, and goal number 3, developing expanded housing options. This includes promoting development or redevelopment of currently underutilized areas and increasing professional opportunities. This property is located in Growth Management Area 3, identified as suburban. GMA 3 surrounds the city center, primarily encompassing the areas to the south, the north, and the west of the city. GMA 3 is predominantly characterized by a mix of residential and commercial development, with ample vacant land available for new development. According to the Land Development Plan, GMA3 provides an existing transportation network capable of accommodating growth. Additionally, within GMA3, residential development is located in close proximity to commercial office and industrial employment, as well as retail services. Therefore, the planning staff find the proposed conditional rezoning request to be consistent with the 2022 Reidsville Land Development Plan, reasonable, and in the public interest based on the aforementioned information provided in this report and the attached statements of reasonableness. The planning staff recommends the proposed conditional rezoning be approved, and the planning board unanimously voted to recommend the conditional rezoning be approved by council. And I will take questions. The applicant is here as well. I believe they have a brief presentation to give you more detail about what this site will look like. Again, that's as a courtesy. They're not locked into any sort of site plan because this is a limited use rezoning.
Oh, thank you. Will you go back again and speak again about what you said about the city sewer main crossing the northwest corner of the property?
Certainly, yes. So there's sewer in the right-of-way, but the very top of this property, it's kind of an oblong property. The sewer main does cross through there. So and that's in the watershed. So there would not be able to be development on top of that sewer main. Assumably, we have an easement there, but I didn't see one recorded on the map. But they wouldn't be able to build on top of that. Currently, from the proposed sketch that they've provided, it looks like all the development's going to be on the front of Freeway Drive, kind of in that southeastern corner.
Thank you.
We don't have those easements. This project goes forward, we might want to make sure that they get that easement recorded in there then.
Well, it's just not reflected on GIS. It may be recorded on the deed or reflected on the deed, but it's just not on GIS.
Any other questions of Drew?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll start the public hearing at 7:06. We have people coming forward to speak for.
Thank you guys for having us. I'm Jessie Metter, Executive Director of Mount Jubilee Ministries, and we're excited to be here tonight, excited to be at this spot in the process. You guys have been helping us through this for really a couple of years now, and this is a big day for us. So just want to tell you a little bit about Mount Jubilee Ministries first, and then I'm going to invite my partner here, Stephen Owen with McAdams Engineering, to tell you more of the technical piece. And I know we're on a timer, so I'm going to try to be pretty quick. Hold on. I say that I am.
So you may need to turn it on.
I think everybody in the community is very well aware and excited for this project, actually. So it don't take a lot of convincing or selling of it.
So I'm going to be really quick. If anybody here hasn't heard of Mount Jubilee Ministries yet, we're a 20-year-old ministry. We are headquartered out of Reidsville, but we serve Rockingham County, Guilford County, and Forsyth counties. We started 20 years ago with 1 week of overnight camp called Camp Jubilee, where we, as a Christ-centered organization, we praise God at camp, we ride horseback, and we shoot archery. We do all kinds of stuff for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So these are folks that are left out of a lot of normal life, and they just don't deserve to be. They deserve to be a part of society, a contributing part of society. So really that's the vision for this property, is a place where they can be a contributing member in society. So we grew from Camp Jubilee to bring in His Path, and that is a year-round day program where we serve folks in Greensboro, Winston, and Reidsville year-round, and with plans to grow from there. And residential services has really been in our blood from the beginning. Our founder knew she wasn't going to be around to take care of her son forever, and her prayer is that he's around after she's gone. And it's one of the biggest fears that our families have. So the purpose and the vision of this property is to give our families and what we call our heroes a place to live and thrive. And we're excited to get to do that really first step in Reidsville. Hopefully it's the first of, I'll say many across the state. So thanks for having us. And I'll pass to Stephen.
Thank you. Again, my name is Stephen Owen. I'm a senior land planner at McAdams, and I live here in Rockingham County. I've been here for almost 20 years in the Reidsville, Rockingham County area. So this is definitely, my hometown and my backyard as well. I'm just going to kind of talk through a little bit more about the site plan side of things. Just wanted to answer any questions that may be kind of related to that. And again, I realize it's not a specific part of this, but we did want to just take a moment just to kind of share the vision of what this site, the excitement that we have about this site. I'll just mention quickly, we did have a neighborhood meeting that was actually back in November. We sent out about 85 invitations. You can see the area that we passed along the invitations to. We had about 20 people attend that meeting. There were a lot of questions that were asked during that meeting. It was very informative, but overall felt like it was very supportive of the feedback that we got. And then I'll just kind of jump right here is, again, kind of the concept plan. I'll just talk briefly about what the vision is. The reason the HB zoning is so conducive for this is it does allow kind of a mixed use, live-work type opportunity. So there would be some residential units, as you can kind of see on that. Well, it's the western side of the site, would all be residential. Proposing a lot of common green spaces, amenity areas as well for that area as well. And then on the east side would be more of a kind of a multi-use building. This would have multiple types of uses, looking at potential kind of retail gift shop opportunities to actually have some of their showcase any of their arts and crafts. Also potential like a coffee shop, deli type situation. Also meeting areas and some office space, and perhaps like a gym or recreation area as well. So it would be very much a multi-use building that would serve the community as well, but also the outside community to give them opportunities as well. And so that's the key vision there. Councilmember Scoble, to your point, kind of in that green area on that western side, that's where that sewer line is kind of right on the edge. There's actually a stream feature there as well, and those green areas are the stream buffers that are being preserved and protected. There's no intent to impact those or tear those up. The only thing that may impact it is if we have to do our sewer connection over there. There might be a little bit impacts with that part of it. And then really, I just want to kind of make myself available if there are any questions, kind of site-specific questions. I'm happy to answer those. But again, thank you for your consideration on this. I really appreciate that, and thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Any questions? Is there anyone else who'd like to speak for? Is there anyone who'd like to speak against? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing at 7:12.
Make a motion to approve the recommended proposal text amendment.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Next item on the agenda, consideration of a text amendment to amend the city's clear-cutting policy, T 2025-07, enclosure 5. Ms. Drew is back.
For the last time, hopefully. So we've heard clear cutting a couple times over the last few months. I'll reiterate what the policy is, where this originated from, and then any questions that you have about the policy. I'm sure you're all aware of what's in here, since it has been brought to you about three times now. So staff has been asked to review and amend the City of Reidsville's current clear-cutting policy in the Reidsville zoning ordinance. As our city continues to grow and develop, it is essential that our land management practices balance economic development with environmental stewardship, community well-being, and long-term sustainability goals. The newly proposed policy is divided into 3 sections. Section 1 outlines the general requirements to obtain a clear-cutting permit from staff and is in line with our existing provisions for exemption and approval. Section 2 provides provisions for clear-cutting of residential properties, outlining a new exemption for clear-cutting properties that are developed within 3 years of permit issuance. And Section 3 provides provisions for clear-cutting of commercial properties and industrial properties, particularly those that abut residential properties, again outlining a new exemption for clear-cut properties that are developed within 5 years of permit issuance. Section 4 is carried over from our existing policy and outlines the violation procedure for properties that are clear-cut without staff approval or the issuance of a clear-cutting permit. Staff have researched the clear-cutting policies of other regional municipalities and make the following suggestions regarding this amendment. Article 3, Section 8, clear-cutting of trees. Number 1, general requirements. The following general requirements exist for clear-cutting activity in all zoning districts, and this is what's carried over from our existing policy. Number 1, a clear-cutting permit must be obtained prior to any logging activity on any non-exempt parcel within the City of Reidsville's planning jurisdiction. Number 2, prior to the issuance of a clear-cutting permit, the applicant must present all required documentation and/or permits from the NC Department of Environmental Quality for review by the City of Reidsville planning staff. Number 3, the required tree buffer zone shall not exceed 20% of the tract acreage net of public road right-of-ways and any required conservation easements. Number 4, perimeter buffer zones that adjoin public roadways shall be measured from the edge of the public road, right-of-way. Perimeter buffer zones that adjoin private roadways shall be measured from the property line. Number 5, properties in which the total acreage prior to the original adoption of this ordinance is 2 acres or less are exempt from the requirements of this ordinance. Number 6, a survey of individual trees is not required for this ordinance. Number 7, the ordinance will not deny reasonable access into and within the subject property. And number 8, forestry activities on property that is taxed on the basis of its present use value as agricultural, horticultural, or forested land under Article 12 of Chapter 105 of the North Carolina General Statutes, and forestry activity that is conducted in accordance with a forestry management plan prepared or approved by a forester registered pursuant to Chapter 89B of the North Carolina General Statutes are hereby excluded from the requirements of this section. And again, these currently exist, we're just carrying these over. We've clarified a few things, but we have not changed any of the standards in Section 1. Section 2, residential properties. A tree buffer zone shall be required for undeveloped residential zoned properties of 25 feet along all property boundaries and right-of-ways. It shall be unlawful to remove trees from undeveloped properties within this required buffer zone prior to the approval of a site plan, subdivision plan, or other authorized development plan or permit for any property. If development approval is obtained, no buffer is required to be left. For reference, currently we require anywhere from 25 to 50 feet. So this is a reduction to a flat 25 feet. The exemption that's provided. Residential parcels may be cleared completely if they obtain development approval within 3 years from the date of issuance of the clear-cutting permit. Upon clearing, the parcel is required to be graded and reseeded with grass or similar ground cover vegetation. To ensure compliance with this exemption, a bond equivalent to the cost of replanting the buffer shall be provided by the applicant prior to the issuance of the clear-cutting permit or the occurrence of any buffer removal activity on site. This bond will be used by the city to replant the required buffer if development approval is not obtained within the specific time period. If development approval is obtained, the bond will be returned to the permittee. You may note there that we did not tell you what the cost of that bond is going to be. We would leave that up to the applicant and their forester or their entity that they're working with to do the development to come up with that cost. I'm not a professional forester, and I would hate to instill, a set cost across the board where in your case it might be $100 and in your case it might be $100,000. So we didn't feel that it was appropriate for staff to determine that. We will leave that up to the professional forester to determine the cost of replanting the buffer and what that bond would be.
Does that have to be in writing?
It wouldn't hurt to include that language in writing, but we didn't explicitly include it. It was our understanding that it would be implied, since we say a bond is required, but we're not telling you what that bond cost would be.
That's my question. If it's not in writing, how are you going to control what the dollar amount and how it gets paid?
Well, we would leave that up to the forester to tell us that dollar amount. We don't want to have control over that dollar amount.
What if they determine there's no dollar amount?
So they're getting trees for free and planting them? Well, that's fine. We would need to see it done.
Yeah.
But I don't foresee that being a reasonable suggestion from a reputable forester, personally. But we can certainly include that language if you'd like it to be included, that the forester needs to determine that cost. But again, that doesn't defeat the point you just brought up, that they could determine the cost is zero.
Right.
Since we're talking about the bond, I've been asked, when did the city council approve charging a bond
For what? Well, for what service?
for this service?
We haven't approved this ordinance yet. You're just considering it?
So the city council could say, we don't want a bond?
Certainly. Yeah, you could certainly say that you don't want a bond, but in lieu of a bond, staff would need to know how else you would like us to hold the developer accountable. And we would need to take this back again and make those amendments. There needs to be some way to hold them accountable. If it's not financially, then we would need some other sort of means to hold them accountable.
So in the past, have we ever collected a bond?
We have, one other time, for this specific instance, but we typically do land development bonds pretty regularly for landscaping, completion of improvements to a project. Usually it's in relation to landscaping or vegetation. A lot of development might finish up right before the winter time and they can't plant their trees in the winter. So they would wait till spring, they would bond it out to us. We've done that several times.
So when we've collected that bond, Chris, where does that bond go? What account does it go to?
It sets in a liability account. It's held until the work is done, and then it's released back to them, or if they don't do the work, we would use the bond to do the work ourselves.
And there's no interest on that bond?
There's not.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions about section 2 before we move on to section 3?
No.
Okay. So section 3 is commercial and industrial properties, specifically those abutting or adjoining residential. A tree buffer zone shall be required for undeveloped commercial and industrially zoned properties of 25 feet along all property boundaries adjoining or abutting residentially zoned parcels. A buffer is not required to be left along public or private right-of-ways. It shall be unlawful to remove trees from undeveloped properties within this required buffer zone prior to the approval of a site plan, subdivision plan, or other authorized development plan or permit for any property. If development approval is obtained, no buffer is required to be left. Commercial and industrial zone properties that do not abut or adjoin residential parcels are not required to leave a tree buffer. So only commercial and industrial properties that share a property line with a residential property have to provide a buffer, and they only have to provide a buffer on that one side or two sides that abut the residential property. Everything else can be cleared completely. And this is to address the concerns about marketing of cleared parcels and visibility from the right-of-way for cleared parcels. The exemption that is provided here mirrors the exemption provided above, with the caveat that we are providing 5 years for commercial development. We understand the commercial development process is a little bit more in-depth, might take a little bit longer. So we are giving 5 years for that process. And then in section 4, the violations section, which is currently what we operate under, building permits, site plans, and subdivision plans shall be denied by staff to the owner of any property for a period of 3 years after the completion of the removal of trees from the required buffer zone, if the removal of trees results in removal of all or substantially all of the trees that were protected under this ordinance from the tract of land for which the permit or plan approval is sought. So if they don't get a clear-cutting permit, it is a protected parcel with a protected buffer. For whatever reason, they don't want to seek the exemption, maybe they don't like the idea of the bond, and then they remove trees without approval, they will be withheld for 3 years from developing that property. Staff further note that this ordinance was originally adopted in 2006, following considerable input from the local community. Across Reidsville, parcels were being clear-cut for profit without development intent. For apparent environmental and aesthetic reasons, the public petitioned planning staff at the time to develop a clear-cutting policy that would protect and preserve the character of the city. Thus, our current policy was introduced, and it has remained in place for nearly 20 years. Staff asked the council to consider the proposed policy amendments and provide direction on which course of action staff should pursue. The council may choose to pursue any or all of the recommended changes discussed herein. So to Councilwoman Scoble's point, if we don't want to include the bond, we don't have to include that language. We can certainly redact it, but we would need other language to be included to be used as an accountability purpose. Let's see, where was I at? Staff just asked that the council equally consider the interests of the community and the long-term growth goals of Reidsville. Staff recommends, specifically the planning staff, recommends that the policy amendment be pursued as presented, and we recommend that the text amendment be approved. The planning board voted to recommend this text amendment be approved by council. And I'll note it was not unanimous.
I've got some questions. I'm not going to beat a dead horse, as I think the business community has stated publicly that they fundamentally disagree with this, and it goes back and it's the same application applies, just like with the Airbnb. We're creating red tape and barriers. Certainly not the best. It's a little bit better than what we're working with at the present moment. Doesn't allow it, period. But, I have some concerns, and in the violation here, for a 3-year period, the owner, my understanding, will not be able to develop this property. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. So what happens if that owner violates this, but then sells that property to a different property owner?
So there are two ways that we can interpret the ordinance. There's a more lenient and a more strict interpretation. The more lenient interpretation is that the violation stays with the land. The more strict interpretation is that we deny development approval to the property owner for any and all properties that owner holds, based on the way it reads currently.
So the concern that I have with what our violation remedies is, and I think that should be alarming to all the council as well as staff here, and we should get some legal advice. Recently, on February the 6th, North Carolina Court of Appeals made a ruling against DEQ over placing these same type non-development barriers. I'm sitting here reading through this ruling from the Court of Appeals, and it's essentially, in a nutshell, it says that the Court of Appeals ruled in favor of the landowner, stating that any time a government entity places such barriers on a private property owner, it has fundamentally now been determined to be a lands taking case, because you've taken that person's land over and no longer afforded them the opportunity to do with what they wish as the land owner. I think this whole policy the violation side of it creates a big deal. And the case law here would be, LDI Shalote versus DEQ, which is the state of North Carolina. I would be happy to share this to read through, and it goes through. This is over DEQ things, but then actually what it does is the article in the Court of Appeals, and the attorney starts to talk about that this is now opens municipalities like us up for litigation in violation of the lands taking case, as was brought up previously by the attorney that was here during the last meeting. And I think when you see court rulings that are making these rulings against these type regulations, and then we're trying to move forward with regulations such as this, it casts another negative shadow upon whether we want development or whether we don't want development. I would certainly hope that the rest of council here would want to seek legal advice in terms of the ruling of the Court of Appeals and how this plays a factor in our authority in the future moving forward to place these, for lack of a better term, moratoriums to prevent development. Like I said, just came out. DEQ tried to get the North Carolina Supreme Court to hear it. From what I'm reading and gathering upon this, I don't think it appears as if the way that it is, the Supreme Court's going to let the lower court's ruling stay. So if that is the case, these policy violations would directly put us in constitutional violations and open us up. By the way, the plaintiff was awarded penalties and legal fees. The legal fees were $109,000. So that sets the precedence of us moving forward as well.
I concur. I think we should seek legal counsel if that is in fact a case that came out recently within the last 3 days.
I would be happy to share this. I've actually spoken to my own personal attorney about this. The article just come out. He's the one who sent it to me, but that was the issues that he was referring to at the last council meeting in terms of the lands taking cases. And courts are starting to shift themselves away from these stringent policies of where we're taking the rights away of the landowner. And so I want to leave it at that piece. I think we all know and understand that I fundamentally disagree with this in general, if it's not a problem, because we don't get to the growth and the growth aspects. We got a civil engineer back here that was here, and not to put him in the middle, but we've spoken to many of them. We've spoken to many investors, developers, and civil engineers that showed up the last time that was here for many times in the public comment, and then we have steadily dismissed the comments of those who we as a community want to invest in our community.
May I make a recommendation?
Yes.
Based on what you're saying, I think you need to table this and have the Court of Appeals case. I haven't had an opportunity to read it. Didn't know.
I know you haven't. Yeah,
I didn't know it existed until you mentioned it. I mean, I don't research things that I don't know that.
Yeah, this is
But what I'm saying is that if what you're saying fits the factual mold of what we're talking about here, it's something that needs to be considered instead of just being real proactive and jumping into it without.
I agree.
Oh, no, I'm saying, I want people to understand that I still fundamentally disagree with this, but this is a very alarming, situation in terms of
It needs to be looked at.
continue to hear about the lands taking issues, and we've had those multiple discussions. And so therefore, I think that in our decision-making processes, not just with this, but in a lot of things in general, and Ms. Scoble talked about the bond and all these different things. There's a lot of things that I wish that we would get legal advice, for, and it would put to bed and put to rest a lot of the issues and concerns that I have. And that's one of the things tonight. I think we ought to seek legal advice, not on just this issue, but on multiple issues as a whole for what's in the best interest of our community. As I've made these accusations of what's in compliance and what's not in compliance and how 160D is read, not only should we also seek this issue because there is more evidence to support the other aspects, but it's going to require us to sit down together, sit down with you and a subject matter expert attorney, and let's ask those questions, and then let's give the community what they deserve with not only this, but the other issues at hand as well. I would hope we could get that commitment from the rest of council tonight to get that legal advice, not just with this, but the other issues that I've brought up that do have facts and data and case law to support it as well.
We may need to make a motion about tabling it.
Yes, let's make a motion to table.
I make a motion that we table the clear cutting policy.
I would second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
The only thing I would say on it is for council, is this something that you can research, Bill, and we can have this thing taken care of next meeting? Just don't drag out freaking 6 months.
That's what I was asking, the date.
It has to be a date specific.
Table to a time, 30 days, 60 days, whatever.
I'll provide you with the court rulings and offer you to research it as well.
So I'll be glad to read that case. Sometimes you go down a rabbit hole with various cases, and Councilman Martin's talking about multiple issues. So, it may, I don't know if it's something to be done on my next council meeting.
To the point of that's why I said, you and getting the proper legal advice, we can jump to this and you guys can certainly pass this. You don't have to table anything. And then we just set ourselves up to litigation with this as well as multiple issues. And we talked about that rabbit hole and what this means and what these rulings and court rulings means in the lands taking cases and stuff. And there's multiple facets of this that need to be looked at.
We've got a motion and a second. So let's take care of that.
Does the motion need to say a time?
It needs to say, you could do 60 days or I'm just pulling a number of days out of the air, but I think it'd take at least 60 days I don't think 30 days is enough to go through everything that.
So I will make a motion that we table clear cutting policy for 60 days.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
One question that I have, could you table and I don't know how this backs up, but could you table the violation side of it, but still allow some type of development to move forward with the assumption that you guys may bring this back and it may pass that the violation is there? And the reason, what I mean by that is what if a developer comes in and makes an application and says, hey, I want to clear this property, I have DEQ approvals, how do you allow that? Is there a way for us to allow that development to move forward over the next minimum 60 days?
To me, the developer is going through that process, and if there's no violation has been addressed or passed, it's something that, does the developer say, is this something that's going to hit me later? Or am I free to go with whatever, there's nothing there holding anybody's feet to the fire. I just see a problem with having some of it addressed and passed tonight, not address the violation stage.
Fair enough, absolutely.
So fundamentally, this is a zoning use issue. So should it be passed without the Section 4 for the violations, that's in addition to a zoning violation which we could levy against a property owner, which is the violation of $100 a day for as long as the violation exists. So we still do have recourse should this be passed without the violations portion, to take action against a property owner who violates this policy.
Well, if we table this and a developer comes in and wants to make an application, does that hinder him doing that at all?
He would be making it under the old standards, which also include the exact same violation language. We currently are operating under a violation language, which it may appear now to be against what the Court of Appeals has ruled is appropriate. But we're currently operating with that language. That was not new language that staff wrote. That's language that we carried over from our existing policy. So you have a couple of options to table it, and any applications that come in between now and then would be heard under the existing policy, which still has that same violation and puts us at the same risk. You could approve it without the violation policy, and staff would just look at any violation through the lens of a zoning violation and levy that penalty. Or you could choose to deny it, and we keep what we've got until we can work out something new and bring it back to you.
Basically, what you have, though, prevents any, I would love to see any kind of development, but basically, if you keep what you got, it prevents any clear cutting to advance the agenda of development. And while I certainly fundamentally disagree with this in general, as I stated, it's much better than what we've had in the past, and it is creating something workable. So my suggestion would be let you work off of the $100 a day violation if they approve to meet these. And as we know, we got 3 to 5 years, so we're not going to be fining $100 a day anytime soon, and we certainly would be able to then do the research on the violation aspect of what authority that we have. But this would at least hopefully open the door to get someone to start moving forward. That would be my suggestion, but we can certainly just table the whole thing in its entirety and just keep operating as we are.
So if you're not going to table it, you're just going to let the motion and second die, then you're going to have another motion to do whatever the council needs appropriate moving forward.
I think council needs to have some discussion in which I gave my opinion, and we follow like what she said, eliminate the violation process because there are remedies available while you conduct that research. That's what I'm saying. And at least it does relax some rules to get us moving forward in a path.
You just withdraw the motion.
I think council needs us.
If that's what you want to do.
Well, we get back into the same situation now of his interest on his development opportunities. Now we've gone into that now. And so now what
you're not getting an interest. I have approvals for every property that I have. I have clear cut approval already. This has absolutely nothing to do with me.
This could be down the road on any other development.
This is
you're not liking this for what it shows affecting you and your development.
So here's a strong disagreement. I made this statement when you talked about what conflicts I may have. as well as I reached out to the School of Government in UNC School of Government. I made this statement the last time we was here. Just because I'm a developer, a builder, or a contractor, and if we are changing policies, regardless of what they are, as long as every citizen or every developer, every builder, every contractor is afforded the exact same opportunities as me or anyone else out here, that's not a conflict. A conflict is if this was tailored specifically to a parcel of property that I have that would allow me or afford me rights that no one else has. So the fact to say that because I may purchase future property or I may do these things, that's not a legal conflict. I made that statement and we asked Bill McLeod that the last time. Is that accurate or inaccurate? Let's put this to rest tonight.
If you've got a direct, you can define that multiple ways in the court has, but if you've got a direct financial interest, then you should recuse yourself. If the parcel that you own is not the subject here.
The parcel that I owned has already been submitted to her and approved.
For 2 of the units.
Yeah, that's all I got. So to the guys to say that I may buy a property down the road tomorrow or 6 months or a year from now or 5 years from now, and to say that you want to put this blanketed conflict of interest on me is absurd. And it certainly violates my rights as well. And we didn't get a fair hearing the last time because not a single council member here gave an exact reason of what the conflict was when I challenged that and you allowed that motion to proceed on without hearing from each individual person.
If there's a policy that is addressed that could...
I think Councilmember Coates needs to give the specific conflict to the people because he's made that accusation multiple times.
Well, hold on, let me respond.
If there's a policy that's addressed that could reasonably, and that reasonably can be a nebulous concept, but if it could reasonably affect your pocketbook, then you should recuse yourself. So that's all I can say. It's up to the council members. If you don't recuse yourself, it's up to the council members to go, okay, we're going to ask Councilman Martin to recuse himself.
Certainly can.
And then they give a reason for that. And that's subject to the court system.
Each individual council member is required to give a reason, not just say, it can't be a blanketed statement of, it's a conflict because he's a landowner, it's a conflict because he's a developer or a builder.
The council members would have a discussion.
Right.
And you're allowed to
And the point of it is the only council member that had a discussion the last time was Councilmember Coates, but he had a blanketed statement of, just like he did a while ago, that I'm a landowner or a property owner, and it's a conflict.
You're allowed to end that discussion. In other words, they're talking about you. So
that's right.
You're allowed to defend yourself, but the litmus test really is if it's reasonable that you could have, that it could affect your pocketbook. It doesn't mean it does. It doesn't mean that it absolutely does.
That's correct.
Reasonable that it could affect your pocketbook.
So it's reasonable to presume what I may invest in the future. I'm just asking, is it reasonable to presume, as legal advice to this city council, is it legal, is it reasonable to presume of what I may purchase or be involved in the future?
I can't answer that. I mean, you're asking...
If you can't answer it, who can? Because you're our attorney.
You're asking me to be judge or jury. Each case has its own idiosyncrasies, Councilman Martin, and I don't know, I'm not well versed on what you own or what you're doing. I have no idea. I don't follow your...
Well, hold on a minute. I want to respond since he asked for one. So last meeting, you sat up here because you refused to recuse yourself. based on your counsel, whoever it was you spoke to. So when I made the objection, I went in and I did my, whatever you want to call it, discussion, where you sat there and you said it multiple times, you're talking about your Park Place development, that you and your group purchased that for $1.2 million to develop it. And you said here in the last meeting that you had nothing to gain in your development. Now, I'm not the smartest man on this earth, but if you're in your group are in debt $1.2 million and you have to develop that to get your money back, how are you not going to gain anything? You're going to sell these properties, you're going to gain that monetary value and divide it up with whoever your partners are, you're going to gain. And my problem is when you don't like the policies that we have, because you have sat here and spoken numerous times because it takes money out of your pocket, how is that not a conflict?
So that's a rhetorical, that statement doesn't make sense, because each council member here knows that we sit down and crunch the math on the property evaluation of trying to sell a $350,000 home. Let's use Park Place specific. So Park Place has 62 home sites in it. And I brought this up way before I ever bought Park Place, way before I was ever involved in Park Place, when the community was asking people to finish it. Every housing development that came here, everybody said, why isn't anyone finishing Park Place? Why are we going to start other projects? Why can't we get things in? I fundamentally explained to the people that the requirements for curb and gutter adds about $1.5 million cost. It's not a matter of making money, it's a matter of losing money. When you had the individual speakers who came here and spoke multiple times, the Fords, the other gentleman who we satellite annexed off of Salem Church Road, who said that I cannot do this development if you make me put curb and gutter in. It's not a matter of making money, it's a matter of it puts me more money in the project to where he might as well, and anyone else should make a donation to the city and just move on with their property. So the cost to purchase Park Place, the cost to put the infrastructure in, the cost to pave the roads and do all the things, and the cost to put curb and gutter in, puts you at about a $5.5 million evaluation. And when you divide that up to, it's either 58 or 62 lots, it puts you at roughly $80,000 a lot. You want to build a home that sells for $350,000. We're just going to do a few little simple math so we don't have to get into the weeds here. The other thing that you have is a 6% realtor's fee that you lose off of $350,000, right? So for simple math, let's just call that $21,000. So you're at a $101,000 evaluation on a lot that you're going to sell a house for $350,000. That house to build cost about $275,000 per unit. It puts you at $375,000 in the house. So where is the taking the money out or loss of profit? There is no profit. And that is fundamentally why no one and no developer has built here. You've heard time and time again that every developer that's brought here a subdivision to be built, it's 200 plus units. And the reason that it's 200 plus units is to get that $70,000, $80,000 valuation down in order to be able to sell a $350,000 house. That is what I have said. And for those particular reasons, that's why no developer has came here and offered any single-family residence subdivisions that would have a half-acre lot. You're misconstruing to the public and to the people what I said and where those numbers come from. It's simple math that anyone can do, but you and the rest of the council has refused to listen to the speakers and the people and the investors that come here. Instead, we will go online and make derogatory or statements that lead that I paid these individual peoples to come here. It's simple math, period.
It is. And you say you don't have anything to gain off of it. That's my point.
So you're saying, but every developer is afforded the same right. So what you're saying is you expect someone to work in this community for free. That principle would apply for everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, we don't want to develop here because we're not here for profit. You know, hopefully Bill Gates or Elon will come in here and do some philanthropy work and they will start to donate and give us a tax base.
Well, I agree that I think that as far as saying that someone has a conflict of interest, it has to be a specific item on a specific day. It can't be a blanket.
It's fine. I specifically asked about the clear cutting policy the last time when they tried to say that it was a conflict, if you go back and recall, and I tried to make it a point, okay? And then, as we discussed the clear cutting policy, we didn't have an issue. It wasn't a conflict. I specifically asked us, well, does anyone see this policy a conflict? At this date and time, when I raise these concerns, now it becomes a conflict. Here's what the city needs to do. Pass this policy. Pass it. And allow us to have someone seek civil litigation from us. Let us get sued. And let's run all developers and investors out of here, because that's fundamentally what we are doing. Period.
I've got a motion and second on the table.
The original was to table it, correct?
Yeah.
I say go with it.
I mean, as far as, Councilwoman Scoble, as far as conflict of interest, again, there's no cut and dried yes or no. I mean, it's a matter of taking a lot of information, which I don't know that it's been available, to make a determination as to another member's reasonable expectations of financial gain or loss. You know, in a matter of Councilman Martin, I don't know, I mean, I'm not privy to what he does. I don't know. But I do know that land development issues are pretty common as far as potential conflict.
But wouldn't you say that any city council that has business people up here, there's going to be a time that there may be a conflict of interest?
Based off of these fundamental principles, you have property owners who are downtown owners. So based off of the mindset of this, anything pertaining to downtown revitalization that is going to increase the value of buildings, just like I stated last time, would be a conflict to property owners down here. You're going to take advantage of your position as a council member and enact stringent rules strictly because of the evaluation of buildings, and we want to go after these property owners downtown because the buildings are decaying. But it's not just simply because it's decaying, it's devaluing the community. And take that aside where you want to get into this guy as a potential conflict. You force property owners to start to make repairs on buildings downtown. What happens when they make those repairs? Well, you got realtors in here. Evaluations are done and prices rise. It's just that simple. So anything that you vote on downtown as a property owner or a business owner here in Reidsville and to force the hands of property owners would become a conflict. And that means it would require at least 3 of you to recuse yourself from the voting on anything, the lease lane issues of how we're going to target downtown businesses, because it's going to make the property rise if they fix them.
Can we move to the vote, because he's going down a different path? It's not
No,
even,
we're not going
it's not
down a
even what we
different
talked
path.
about.
This is just an effort and attempt
We're right
to
here on this
suppress
policy, clear cut, and you're talking about downtown buildings. So can we go ahead and make the vote from the original motion?
All right, we have a motion and a second.
The table, correct?
Yeah.
That's the original motion.
Table it for 60 days.
And the original second was Councilman Martin, and then Councilwoman Dejournette did it with the inclusion of the 60 days. So I'm going to count yours.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second, and the correction has been made on the second. Is there any discussion?
I mean, one question. So I understand that if we table it, we go back to our previous requirements, if anyone, which technically is not much of a change at all, right?
It's on the books now.
and it's on the book, so if we go back to that, to any developers.
Correct. And it does include that violations language currently.
What was adopted in 2006 will
Will
stand until you all do your research on the case law. That's what I was about to interject about. I was going to ask that it will put pressure on staff to kind of piecemeal this thing, and then if someone comes in, then we wouldn't know exactly how to operate. So if you're going to table it, please do that, and then that way you can research everything, and we'll just go under the current one that was adopted in 2006.
And in
All
the
the
event-
questions answered.
In the event that 60 days is not enough time, perhaps this would be considering denying this to provide staff with the time to properly evaluate the material that Councilman Martin has presented, because there's no guarantee that 60 days will be enough time to incorporate all of the legal context which he's provided us. And it's the same outcome. We continue to operate under what's existing, whether you table it or deny it tonight.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Anyone opposed? Thank you.
Thank you, Drew.
Next item on the agenda is public comments. Purpose of public comments period shall be to allow members of the public to present any matters pertaining to city business or items on the city council agenda. This period shall not serve as a forum for debate between the speaker and the city council. Each speaker will have 3 minutes and may only speak once each meeting. Each speaker shall only make comments while at the podium after clearly stating his or her name and physical address. The topic must be something related to the business of Reidsville or something that the city council can have influence or control over. Remarks shall be addressed to city council and not to staff, the audience, or media. No remarks should be made on any matters pertaining to quasi-judicial hearings conducted by city council. Speakers will not be allowed to campaign for public office, promote private business ventures, or use language of a personal nature which insults or demeans any person or which, when directed at a public official, is not related to his or her public duties. Actions by city council on topics raised under the public comment section should not be expected. Written comments may be accepted in lieu of oral statements and may be delivered personally or mailed to the clerk at 230 West Moorhead Street, Reidsville, North Carolina. Is there anyone who'd like to speak before council tonight? Yes, sir.
Somebody was behind you first, though.
My name is Ross Apple, 2931 Country Lane. So I'm here tonight, good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm here tonight after a January meeting that I had with several of the city staff members. That was regarding an ongoing stormwater issue that we have at some property, family property. At the end of that meeting, we ended in disagreement over who bears the responsibility for those repairs and for that stormwater. I feel that this lies with the responsibility lies with the city. And I say that based off of what was offered in that meeting was that the city offered to partner with us on the cost of those repairs. And I believe they offered to partner with us because they know that they're responsible for those repairs. I feel like that would open up the city to partner with other people on a lot of other issues as well. I feel like as a resident that my responsibility in that partnership ends when I pay taxes. Those taxes are meant to fund the infrastructure, excuse me, and the repairs for those stormwater. If the city believes that they need a partner, I would encourage the city to reach out to Senator Berger and the state. There was a recent interview with the town of Madison where they had a very similar issue where they acknowledged that they are responsible for storm water. And Senator Berger and the state were able to provide them with funding to help those repairs. So I would appreciate that the council would consider the city's responsibility on fixing this issue for us. Any questions?
Can I ask what was the estimate to make these repairs?
We have not got an estimate on that. It's, there were pictures that I brought up here in the fall showing the damage to the foundation of one of the buildings. And we haven't dug up under the foundation to see, how extensive the damage is.
I just have a question. Has staff, since the meeting you had in January, was it middle part of January? Or?
Yeah. It was Wednesday. It was the Wednesday right after that.
Since the meeting, has any staff, I don't know who was present in the meeting, looked into it to see or found out anything what the legalities of it are? Is it city responsibility? Is there have to be a partnership, or is it the property owner? That'd be my question. If anybody, any staff knows, I don't know.
Well, the simple answer is that our code of ordinances addresses stormwater, and it's very clear that when the city works on private properties through the easement process, there is no easement at that property. So the ordinance is pretty simple, and I have copies of it if y'all want our ordinance. But
ordinances don't supersede statutory responsibilities or statutory obligations. And there's, again, as we started this conversation about a while back about responsibilities of storm water, the city receives tax dollars for the streets and highways. And when storm water, based off of case law, here's another thing where we should be getting proper legal advice, reaching out to subject matter experts and diving into this, is when you receive tax dollars. I've reached out to the School of Government. I know Teresa Scoble has reached out to them. I've shared some of the issues and some of the concerns that I've had, and she's also sought legal advice. We also sought that legal advice in Salt Lake City, Utah, when we got to sit down with the attorneys and go over the court rulings. And courts have consistently held that if the storm water is solely serving the purpose in the public's interest of the streets and highways, you receive tax dollars from the state of North Carolina under what's called the Bill Powell Act. And those fundings is up to the city to divvy those out and spend them and allocate them to these different responsibilities as you see fit. It's not just because we have an ordinance that's outdated from, if I recall correctly, I looked this ordinance up, I looked up our engineering design standards, they were from about 1977 is the last time that thing was updated. It's not that simple. I think we all know that. I think the attorneys know that it's not a cut and dry situation with the stormwater, and it's also in how you give that wording to seek that legal advice. When you loop in its own private property, you're throwing that confusion in, when the fact of the matter is that pipe would not be crossing private property if it was not serving the public's interest of the streets and the highways. And stormwater and curb and gutter is solely put in for the health and safety, per statutes in the law, of the streets and highways. So when we have all these stormwater issues that continue to take place across here, we cannot continue to kick the can down the road and say it's on private property, because actually, if you don't have an easement, by law, you're required to get an easement now for that infrastructure that is passing there. So if we're not in compliance because we weren't up to date with the law in 1970 or 1960, the courts don't allow you to continue to violate that law. You have to do what's right, back up and fix it, regardless of the easements. And there are, we as a community, just like Madison, as he stated, recognized, receive tax dollars for those repairs. If you cut the pipe off to the curb and gutter on the streets and the storm water, you have no stormwater management, as we see that, because where these pipes have failed, based off of what he showed, we're flooding the streets and also flooding private property. That is just a way to kick the can down the road and deny responsibility. And there again, we've opened ourselves up for civil litigation to be sued and responsible for attorney fees. Why would we continue to operate under this and not just get a subject matter attorney, lay out the specifics of exactly what the issue is, and ask, are we responsible? It's that simple, and the argument's a moot point. But I think that we don't ask for that legal advice because we don't want to know the truth, you know. And it's a bad look upon us, especially when people look at what's going on here. When business owners and property owners and investors look to see how we handle these situations, they're going to flock to communities like Madison who have stepped up and taken it. And that's a testament to the development that we have seen take place on the west side already, and no development here at all. We have a fundamental duty to seek the proper legal advice and not just say it's an ordinance. Ordinances aren't going to save us in court. It's not going to save us against case law. It's not going to save us against those violations.
Thank you, Mr. Dale.
So you asked if anybody had looked at it, and this goes beyond our property. It's further up the pipe and further down the pipe that there's issues. So it's not just me.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Hinkle?
Sir, I've got a gift here I'd like to give y'all, if I can, before I start my speech. If that's permissible.
Yeah.
Is that okay, sir?
Yes, sir.
This is a little book I've read since I was spreading. Some of y'all may have this book. A lot of you probably do. It has helped my life tremendously. I have given out over hundreds of these books. I found my place. I hope it puts meaning in your life, mine, and everyone's. Anybody else need one? I'm giving another Councilman Coates. You don't need another piece. I got Reverend, is he here?
He's got
I got one for him.
You got one for me?
Yes, sir, I do.
Thank you very much. I'm going to just set things down like this. I had trouble with this, sir, trying to concise this speech into 3 minutes.
Mr. Hinkle? Mr. Hinkle? You need to give your name and address.
Yes, sir, I will, thank you.
You got 3 minutes.
My name is Tim Hinkle, and I've lived in this town most of my life. People who meet my boys always say, Tim, you have two of the finest boys. This means the world to me. They grew up on the football and the soccer fields of our school system here in Reidsville. That same spirit has always been present in my life since my tour of duty in Vietnam. Working in my family's grist mill business, my first business here in this town, and the community relationships that have shaped my family. I love this town and its people. Like many parents, I listened hard when I heard my kids say there was nothing here for them and they wanted to move away. I'm lucky they've stayed relatively local. One son, Mark, my oldest son, managed a real estate business here in Rockingham County and is all in on seeing this city flourish and succeed. My other son, David, is a medical device consultant in the Tri-End and a local musician. When Mary Lou and I were young, starting out in this life with our boys, a wonderful woman named Rosetta McDaniel helped us with child care and instilled in David a lasting appreciation for soul music, which he continues to develop as a singer-songwriter. I am very proud and inspired by what they achieved in their lives thus far. We've also had inspiring examples among our neighbors, folks like Tom Holderby, working to bring life back in old places, offering programs and welcoming people in shopping malls, housing developments, and community centers. This is what commitment looks like. It should also remind all of you sitting up there, I hope you will acknowledge and agree that his efforts give hope to so many young people who may want to come and build their future here. What I want to share tonight is simple. We do better when we remember our shared humanity, when all children can play together without worry, and when neighbors help one another. We create a stronger town for everyone. We are brothers and sisters in our churches, our neighborhoods, and our hometowns. I don't come here to argue politics. I don't like how it breeds divisiveness, but it is necessary, I guess. I've come to ask that we choose teamwork over such division, kindness, speculative suspicion, and cooperation and support over jealousy and quarrel. Let us encourage all those who invest our time and hearts into this beloved community, supporting all young people in their dreams and treating one another with dignity and respect. I love this town, and I believe together we can keep making it a family-oriented place where everybody can belong and be welcome and appreciated for their strengths and efforts to make Reidsville a better place. That's it. That's all I have, sir. Thank you much, Mr. Gorham. We appreciated Black History Month as you being our first black mayor. We want to work with all peoples.
Anyone else who'd like to speak before council?
My name is Joe Towns. I live at 2003 Richardson Drive. And I've been sitting here trying to convince myself that I don't really have a dog in this fight about development. I'm not a developer. But I do have a dog in the fight because I'm a taxpayer. And through development, we make and help ourselves by improving the number of people that's helping bear our tax burden just by bringing other people in. And we've heard several meetings about contractors that try to do something and then they don't. And what I'm Right now, I'm the vice chairman of the planning board for the city. And I've talked to a couple of our other members, Mr. James Mobley and Thomas Thompson. And we're thinking about, as a small committee, if you would like, we're willing to look at these problems externally and internally to see if we can identify what the problem is that causes developers to not want to build single-family homes here. And if council feels that this idea has some merit for us to look into it and report back to you in a reasonable time. If you think this has some merit, we would ask that we would be empowered to, one, visit these contractors on our own, just as our little committee, see what their concerns are that we may can talk to. Then we would want to look at the UDO and see if there's anything we can do there that may offer solutions to these problems. And thirdly, we want to look at the communication between developers and our city staff to see if there's a problem there. And we're just offering this. We'll get back to you in a reasonable time. And I just offer that up from our little committee, if you want to consider that. And we're not looking for villains. We're looking for some kind of solution to these problems. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Towns. Is there anyone else who would like to speak before council?
I want to make a quick statement based off of what he said. I've not heard a single negative complaint about staff in terms of communication, how they're treated, or anything like that. The issues are fundamentally the policies that guide us. And staff has to enforce those policies. I don't think we have a customer service issue here. I certainly don't mind you looking at communications, but I think the issue is what the substance of the issue is what you said, not the way they're treated by staff, in my opinion. If anyone thinks that, I feel like it's important to correct that. Staff has been nice to everybody, to my knowledge.
Thank you. Okay, sir.
Thank you. I'm Mark Hinkle. Have multiple properties here in Reidsville, 205 Southeast Market Street. I'm here tonight because I'm deeply concerned about the direction the city's heading, and more importantly, where it isn't heading. My call to action for change wasn't dismissed because it lacked merit.
Can't hear you.
My call to action wasn't dismissed because it lacked merit. It was dismissed because it challenged the status quo. In my opinion, that kind of indifference is a failure of leadership, and it comes at the expense of our community. The regulations currently in place don't simply guide development, they actively hinder it. The cost of red tape and the unreasonable hurdles placed in front of developers and investors make growth extremely difficult. As a result, we continue to lose business opportunities and momentum that this town desperately needs, not just to prosper, but to survive. There's a way to be environmentally responsible while avoiding the snarl of unnecessary bureaucratic red tape, and refusing to explore that balance only harms our community. I spoke out because I believe this council would be willing to take an honest look at policies that clearly are not working. My intent was not to appeal to common sense and advocate for changes that would benefit the entire town, not just me, not just one group, but anyone willing to invest their time, money, or livelihood here. Somehow, after I rightfully, as a citizen, spoke up and asked our elected officials to make reasonable improvements to help our town grow, disparaging comments were made by one of our own council members that I'm part of a group simply trying to line our pockets. That statement is false, dismissive, and frankly ignorant. These issues aren't just about me or about Willie Martin. I had businesses in this city long before I ever met Willie. Yes, we're partners in some ventures now, but we also each have our own separate businesses. I support Willie because he understands the needs of the city and is willing to fight for meaningful change. I'd also like to thank Councilmember Scoble, who has acknowledged that we have real problems that need to be addressed. So my question is this: what about the rest of council? Are we going to continue sitting here with blank stares, dismissing these concerns and pretending they'll fix themselves? I've already invested my time and my money here. I'm not asking for a handout. I'm in survival mode. And yes, I want to make a profit. That's why people work. That's why they invest. Profit's not a dirty word. It's what makes businesses sustainable, creates jobs, and supports the community. Without it, businesses fail, jobs disappear, and towns decline. Right now, this city offers very little to keep young people here. There's not enough housing growth, not enough entertainment, not enough opportunity. Without population growth, businesses have no workforce to hire from and not enough customers to support them. That's not opinion, that's economic reality. Businesses are not going to come to the city with stagnant growth and then fight through unreasonable regulations just to open their doors. They'll go elsewhere, where demand is strong and rules make sense, and many already have. It makes no sense for a small city like Reidsville to adopt regulations modeled after boom towns like Raleigh or Cary. These cities are trying to manage explosive growth. We're trying to create it. Treating those situations the same is a recipe for continued decline. If we don't make meaningful changes, real efforts to remove barriers of growth and continue pushing investors and businesses away, then we shouldn't be surprised when nothing changes or when things get worse. So the question before council simply is, do you want growth or do you want to keep doing what hasn't worked? Because if nothing changes, neither will Reidsville's future.
Thank you, Mr. Hinkle.
Thank you, sir.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak before council?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Frank Verdi, and my address is 205 Lachey Drive. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm a business owner and investor here in Reidsville, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to each of you this evening. First, I would like to sincerely thank the members of this council who consistently strive to listen to the voices of the community and take meaningful action to help our city grow. That effort does not go unnoticed, and it is appreciated by many of us who have chosen to invest our time, money, and future here. I'm here tonight to respectfully urge the council as a whole to continue and strengthen its commitment to listening to concerned citizens, particularly regarding city responsibility, and balance between governance and private property rights. As a business owner and investor, I believe in smart planning and reasonable regulation. However, there is growing concern within the community that at times the city may be overstepping into private land matters while core responsibilities such as infrastructure, consistency and enforcement, and clear communication are not always receiving the attention they deserve. When policies feel unpredictable or overly intrusive, it creates hesitation. Hesitation affects investment, and investment is critical to Reidsville's economic health and long-term growth. Tonight, I respectfully request action, not just acknowledgement, action in the form of clear communication with property owners, consistent application of ordinances, and a renewed focus on collaboration rather than control. The citizens, business owners, and investors of Reidsville want to work with the city. We want to contribute to progress, not stand in opposition of it. Reidsville has tremendous potential. By listening, engaging, and acting with balance and fairness, this council can foster trust, encourage growth, and ensure that our city continues moving forward in a positive and sustainable way. Thank you each for your time, your service, and your continued efforts on behalf of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Verdi. Is there anyone else who would like to speak before council? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. City Manager's Report. Enclosure 6.
Just a few things I want to point out from the report. I know you all have it, you can read it. I would be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to our Public Works Department. It's been a while since we've had snow, and It's been a long time since we had this much snow, and they did a great job of getting out and attacking it early, and I think I'd be proud of the job that they did most, so please pass that along again to them all. There's some project updates in the report. The one here, the Rural Ready project, has been closed out. The state has accepted the closeout package. The final reimbursement has been received, so that project is complete. I want to point out to you all that the wastewater treatment plant B&R project, there were 3 change orders approved. They were under the threshold for management approval, and together they were $108,000, which there were contingency funds to cover that. To move that project along, those change orders have been approved. The last thing I'm just going to point out to you, the RPD did have to move on replacing their tasers. They had a contract that was several years old and had actually gone out of contract with the taser company, but they had a back supply of tasers they've been able to use that they are going to go through that supply pretty quickly. So they have negotiated a new contract. It is a 5-year contract, about $60,000 a year. But I told them to go ahead and we would enter that contract. They have money to pay for the first year. So we're going to move ahead with that to not put them in a crunch of running out of tasers. So that contract is going to go into place. It will not be affect our budget until our actually 27-28 budget, because they have money for the first payment that's not due till August. But I wanted to point that out to you. That is all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
I have a question for Chris.
Yes.
The redundant water line, only 2 parcels remain. Aren't those the same 2 parcels that we have been talking about for a long time?
They are the same 2 parcels. It's not an easy process to get the right-of-way acquisition. So, but there's only 2 left. So once they're done, we can bid that project out.
Do we have any idea about when?
Well, neither one of those are individuals.
Okay.
So we're dealing with a corporation and an institution. So it's not the same as an individual. But, you know, we do have a consultant and he's working with them. So I think we will be moving forward pretty quickly.
Great. Second question, for the UDO, for our retreat, Chad Meadows, will he be there for our retreat?
Chad Meadows is going to be at the retreat. I do have an update on the UDO for the retreat. We are going to have the last 3 chapters that have not been presented yet will be presented that day. That is what we're going to be going over. So those 3 chapters you'll have. He will present them, answer any questions you have on them, and we're going to have a calendar of where we go from there. That's the last pieces of the UDO to be put together, and then we'll have a full version. And of course, we want everyone to have time to review the full version. Council and the planning board, because it will go to the planning board first. So we will present you a calendar at the retreat and a plan of how the UDO will move from that point.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is council members and chamber reports. If it's okay with you all, I'm going to let Diane go first. You got children you got to take a look at.
I got to figure it out. It's okay.
Thank you, Diane.
You can hand them, I'll pass them down. Over to.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. So obviously the weather, that's what everybody's talking about. It's changed all the things. So looks a little bit different than what it would have. Coffee is actually this Thursday at Eden Jewelry. That was also weather related. So we will be there for that. And then the luncheon was rescheduled to next Wednesday. We just felt like it was appropriate. Businesses needed to be back to work. People were struggling with weather related issues. So we postponed it to next Wednesday. You're already all registered for those of you that are coming. So we are good to go, pending no more crazy weather issues. Reidsville Night with the Greensboro Swarm is coming up. That is on March 27th. It is live now. It is sponsored by Team Reidsville. We're so excited to continue that partnership with you all and have a night out for Reidsville. So you guys know to let Angela know and myself, and we'll get you guys registered. But that there's a T-shirt included with all the tickets that is at the field house. And we have a ribbon cutting on Thursday. That is to celebrate the fiber project with AT&T. And they're meeting on Woodland Avenue. There are multiple places, but they felt like that was best to, and they're going to actually, they sent me an email today. I have not been able to forward it on, but they actually have not only the ribbon cutting, but they're going to be talking about the project, and they've invited all of you to come. It's kind of a 2-hour window. It's kind of lengthy, but I think it's kind of a floating. You can come and talk to them and go. So I will forward that information on. They just sent that out today. And then we have the Collective Coffee and Company. They have renovated. It's really exciting. There in the Wentworth Strip, they combined their ice cream shop with the coffee shop. So now the ice cream can be year-round, which was just really exciting for them. We have several new members. You can look at all of that. The Coffee and Connections will be hosted at the Reidsville Orthodontics in March. Also, there are a couple of things happening right now. There's a survey, and I don't know if you all have received it. If you get our emails, it's very, very important to me that you take the survey. So if you do not have it, please let me know, and I will send it again. The deadline is this Friday. It has been extended. So I think I've told you before, we are participating with NC Growth, which is a strategic partnership out of the Chapel Hill, the Keenan Floyer Business School, and Rockingham County was one of 3 counties where they were 3 rural counties where they were doing grant funds, and this is something that fit into that. So Jennifer Lester, when she was our board chair, was able to secure this project with them. So we are doing a 5-year strategic plan for the Chamber of Commerce specifically, but keeping in mind some of the other things that are happening in the Reidsville Area Foundation and their work with the Harwood Institute and so all of the things that the city is doing. So we're keeping all that in mind, but it's very simple, like 5 minutes of your time, but it would give us feedback. And anybody can take it. You don't have to be a member. We want to hear from everybody, cross-section of the community, but it will help us drive what our vision and goals are specifically. So if there's any questions about that, or if you didn't get it, let me know. And when you receive it, if you have the link, forward it to anybody you think that it would be important. It's anonymous, doesn't record names, doesn't record emails. The Chapel Hill folks will be taking care of all of that, and then they'll put it all together and present it back to our board. So, also the directory will be going to print soon. And we are working through our stories and all of that. But if you all own additional businesses or have additional listings, make sure that your information is correct in there. And then we'll make sure the city stuff is correct, but I'm sure it is. So,
13 new members, great. What's the most you've ever had in 1 month?
In 1 month, I think it's either 22 or 24. But yeah, things are really busy. There's a lot of people doing a lot of really cool stuff. We are really excited with the bookstore joining. I know we're going to do some things with her and something that's really needed in Reidsville. So lots of, but I won't go through all of those. But yeah,
good.
Lots of good stuff.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Told you I'd be quick.
Councilwoman Dejanay.
I'd like to start by saying I really want to thank the city what they did for the doing the snow with the infrastructure, lines broken, several things. We were getting calls, but they were responding to them on time, which I thought was great considering what we had. I did attend the MLK breakfast on January 19th, and it was very well presented, very well done.
Councilman Coates.
Mayor, I'm going to forego my report. And I want to say something I think I feel is warranted. But first, I want to thank your guys too, and gals, because I seen one out there in the cold for helping out and what they did. And I think some water mains or some lines busted during this period too. So thank you for all the hard work they did and the time spent. But I feel it's warranted for me to. I want to get some clarification, and it's something that is recently just came up, and it was from where Councilman Martin had did a Star News interview. And I think it was after the candidate forum at the RCC. And the reason I want some clarification on it is he made a statement to Charles Rourke there that Popeye's chicken wasn't coming. Well, that was the first I've heard about it. And so I immediately picked up the phone and I started making some contacts with city staff to see if any of our folks had heard that on their level. And no, they have not. So I wanted that to be looked into to find out what was going on and where it came from. And I'm not sure, we talk about teamwork, so I'm not sure if Councilman Martin, when he heard the news, because he said he heard it from a source, why he didn't call staff and report that to the staff so they could look into it. But he made a statement. Charles Rourke, of course, said it was breaking news that Popeye's chicken was not coming to Reidsville. So I asked the staff to look into it. So my question tonight is, have we had the ability to look into that to see if there's any validity to Popeye's not coming? That's what I want to know.
Well, the Community Development Department, they were able to contact Mr. Patel, who is the owner listed for that project, and he assured us that the project is not dead, that they are moving forward and are planning a groundbreaking this spring. So that's the information that we got from him late yesterday, that as far as we know, the project's still going.
So in all transparency, Councilman Martin, you talk about that. Where'd you get your information from?
So actually, I have that. I know a lot of people want to know that. So the Corporal group, who is the owner of Popeyes, an individual with that group actually reached out to me. They have very close ties to a large business individual in this community who actually recruited them. And what was stated as of yesterday, which I do have on text message from them, that they're not coming. The land is going to be placed for sale, but they don't want to, because staff did reach out to them, they don't want to get in. I actually asked for a written statement from them, but they said that they didn't want to get involved in that aspect of it. But I was able to get the reasoning as to why they wouldn't be coming here. And the reasonings revolve around the lack of development here, single-family residents, ready, available workforce, and other opportunities that have arisen to let them do work elsewhere. What they did say is that staff was beyond nice to them and was very easy to deal with. But they're not going to get involved in it. Maybe if you would like to reach out to Mr. Homsey at Impex, who has super close ties to them.
So who'd you talk to?
I just told you, Mr. Homsey.
So you didn't talk to the owner that was going to build Popeyes?
I was with Mr. Homsey when he was on the phone with the owner. So, no, I wasn't on the phone, but we were beside each other as if we are right now, relaying those questions and answers back and forth. And so yesterday, after, someone called me, I went back to him, reached out to him, and they said, the project is off as of now. They will not be building here. Yes, they did receive their permits, but they don't want to get involved with any political issues here because they were reached out by staff and they prefer not to comment on it. I asked them specifically for a letter to give in reference as the reasons why, and those reasons are what I said. It's simply not a fit for them right now because of the lack of people moving into the community, the lack of available housing, which puts a burden on workforce development and who to choose from to fulfill those jobs. You're more than welcome to reach out and go speak with him yourself, or reach out to the Corporal group yourself, and I could actually provide you with the contact information.
I think that's what we pay staff to do.
Well, you most certainly can. I didn't seek them out to get the information. The information was provided to me. But the issue here what the issues should be, or what we should be focused on, is why they're not coming and what can we do to improve
for people to come and stay. Because when you lose a business like that, other retailers follow that information and communicate. And so when people look at these issues and fundamental issues to hold these businesses here, and they see that one business, one major retailer, one major fast food chain makes a decision to put a project on hold or not potentially go through with the project together, it starts to raise red flags amongst other investors to say, okay, what's going on here? Why aren't we building? Why aren't they developing here? And if we were on their radar, in order for them to come here, another entity, that scares that entity away. So I felt that it was important to find out why they're not coming. They don't want to make a scene out of this because it could jeopardize their future moving forward in general with business. It's certainly not bankruptcy, but there are other places that are more desirable where they can get a larger return on their investment, and they don't have to fight for employment and who's coming, like what clientele is going to be there. And so our population has a major issue pertaining to that, and then the lack of single-family home residents being built here is the issues. So I have it in text message communication that it plainly states they are not coming. I asked the individual to follow up with that again yesterday to make sure, and he is, and so that has been done, and those are the issues, and it's not going to happen in any date and time. It's not going to break ground in April. As a matter of fact, they just purchased a piece of property in Winston-Salem, a 1 acre lot that they're getting ready to renew their focuses on to build a new location there. So the issue should be, what do we need to do as a council to promote growth and to keep people here and to promote the items that would want someone like that to stay here, or that would want them to come back and reinvest in this community, and hopefully they don't sell the property. That's what we need to be focused on.
Well, it looks like we were obviously given different messages. Hopefully, the one that Steve was giving was right, and we'll buy you a chicken sandwich on opening day. We'll wait and see.
I hope you are. I hope you are. But, you know, certainly in these confrontations, back and forth about fundamentally how do we get to development, people look at these regulations. They look at this back and forth stuff and these things, and when we continue to dismiss the actual stakeholders who we want to invest in this community, that's what creates the uncertainty and the doubts. And I've asked simply for this: put a committee together of the individual stakeholders. We haven't done that yet, where we've actually sat down at a round table and done and to find out what do we need to do. Get the expert advice, get the stakeholders' advice, but instead, we want to figure it out on our own when we don't have the experience to figure it out. And it's not hard to see that there is an issue, a fundamental issue. And we're not Raleigh, we're not Cary, and we're none of these cities. And if we continue to develop these policies, Ms. Scoble passed out a book in everybody's box. Ms. Scoble, we had this same conversation in Utah along with Councilmember Harrison. He didn't attend the meeting in full. He went to somewhere else as we were engaging in this. And the statements that I'm making, the issues that I am bringing up, have been reiterated to you by the people. As a matter of fact, we met with Raleigh when we were in Utah, Salt Lake City. And Raleigh was the guest speaker who said, do not do what we have done. We have ran business, and we tried to put such a hard control on business that now we're having to incentivize and pay business owners to come here. And do not mimic what we do. Now, Councilmember Harrison, do you recall that meeting? Do you recall that meeting, Councilmember Scoble?
I have no say about that right now because I think we are off track right now.
Okay. But so that's the issue that we need to be looking at.
Go ahead and give your report.
That's my report.
Okay. Councilmember Scoble.
May I make a comment about Tommy Carter?
About what?
Tommy Carter.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. On the January the 19th, I did attend the MLK breakfast, which is always a event that I look forward to every year. It was great. January 22nd, I attended the ABC board meeting, and on January the 29th, I met with Florence Putman here in Reidsville regarding Tommy Carter, who is our oldest citizen in the city and in the county, and she just turned 107. That's my report.
Okay. Councilmember Harrison.
Just one, I attended the MLK Junior events, and they were grand as always.
I'm going to forego the most of my report and echo what some council members have said in reference to Public Works Department. And I'm going to add to that the fire department and the police department. There were a couple of accidents that occurred during our snowstorms, and our fire department was there on time as usual, and our police department was also there and taking good reports. And everything that I've heard thus far from the citizenry has been positive about our city as a whole. Even when they made phone calls here to City Hall, they've gotten really good information and been very well informed. I would like to mention the fact that I attended the very first ribbon cutting of the year at Toro Tax on West Moorhead Street. It's a family-owned business. The Moscators own the business. And I'd also like to mention the fact that during the snow and ice, there was some sledding done over at the old Booker T. Washington High School. And yours truly went down the hill about 5 times. And I'm still feeling it. But I did enjoy myself. And my grandkids got a kick out of it. That's my report. Ladies and gentlemen, we've enjoyed having you here tonight. I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Anybody want an hour or two extension? No discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Thank you all very much for coming out tonight.